You say you want money, but what you really want is to stop performing. To stop waking up with a life that looks full but feels hollow. Jung warned, most ambition is just unresolved shame wearing a suit, and until you face the part of you that's addicted to more, you will keep selling your soul to feel like someone. You're not chasing wealth, you're chasing wholeness. You say you're ambitious, you say you want freedom, success, security, but pause for a second and ask yourself, what exactly are you trying to escape? And what do you believe will finally make you enough? Carl Jung wouldn't have called it ambition. He would have called it compensation, not power, but a reaction to powerlessness. Not success, but survival in disguise. Because most people aren't chasing money, they're chasing the feeling they think money will finally give them. And that feeling is wholeness. The feeling of no longer needing to prove yourself, of no longer performing, of no longer being at war with your own reflection. But instead of facing that war directly, you chase more status, more income, more upgrades, more validation. Because the truth is, ambition often starts in a place no one talks about. Shame. The kind you learned as a kid when your needs were too loud. The kind you felt when you got praised for achievement but punished for rest. The kind that whispered, if I don't produce, I don't matter. If I don't win, I disappear. So you started performing. Not because you were greedy, but because you were afraid. Afraid of being left behind. Afraid of being ordinary. Afraid of being forgotten. You wore driven like a badge, but it was armor. You called it motivation, but it was a trauma response, and the world rewarded you for it. It cheered you on for ignoring your exhaustion. It applauded your grind. It told you you're killing it, while you were quietly killing yourself. Carl Jung said it best, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's what most success becomes, an elaborate strategy to avoid looking inward. Because the moment you sit in silence, you feel it, the hollowness, the restlessness, the quiet sense that all your accomplishments still haven't made you whole. Why? Because wholeness doesn't come from what you achieve. It comes from what you integrate. It's not built through trophies. It's built through truth. And the truth is, you were never chasing money. You were chasing a feeling of being enough, a life that finally feels like yours. But here's the catch. If your sense of worth is tied to your net worth, you'll never feel safe, even when you win. Because the numbers can go up, and you'll still feel behind. The bank account can grow, but the emptiness will remain. That's not a financial problem. That's a psychological fracture. Carl Jung believed that when a person disconnects from their true self, they fill the gap with symbols. And money is the most seductive one of all. Because money doesn't just buy things. It buys silence. It buys distance from the fear. It buys temporary comfort. But it doesn't buy peace. And it never buys you. So stop lying to yourself. You're not chasing wealth. You're chasing the version of yourself that you lost the moment you tied your value to numbers. And no paycheck will ever bring him back. Only presence will. Only truth will. Only the decision to stop performing and start becoming whole again. Childhood taught you that value must be earned. It didn't start with money. It started with rules, with glances, with expectations you didn't know how to meet, only that you had to. Be good. Don't ask for too much. Work hard if you want to be something. These weren't just instructions. They were the beginning of your programming, and they didn't just shape your habits. They shaped your identity. Carl Jung believed the shadow, the hidden, repressed parts of the psyche, is not born from evil, but from what we were told not to be. And what were you told? Don't be selfish. Don't be needy. Don't dream too big. Don't make mistakes. Don't be lazy. Don't be expensive. So what did you do? You learned to perform. You attached your worth to achievement. You found out early that love had terms and approval had requirements. You started believing that value had to be earned. That's when the split happened. The real you, the one who felt deeply, wanted freely, asked boldly, got tucked away. And in its place, you built someone else, the good kid, the achiever, the quiet one, the overachiever, the one who doesn't ask for help, the one who's fine, always fine. But it wasn't fine. You just couldn't afford to disappoint. So you hustled, not for goals, but for identity, not for joy, but for permission to exist without shame. And here's where money comes in. Because if your childhood taught you that value must be earned, money becomes the scoreboard. Every raise is a nod of approval. Every brand, a badge of acceptance. Every dollar, proof you're doing it right, that you're not a burden, that you're worth something. But Jung would ask, what if that voice in your head, the one that says, keep pushing, keep proving isn't your voice at all? What if it's the echo of someone else's fear, your parents, your culture, your teachers, your past? Because that belief that you must hustle to deserve peace didn't come from your soul. It came from survival, and survival rewires everything. It teaches you to ignore your limits, to betray your boundaries, to treat rest as weakness, and to treat money as medicine for a wound it was never meant to heal. So even now as an adult, when you feel behind financially, it's not just anxiety, it's shame. It's the old fear whispering, "You're failing, you're falling behind, you're not enough." But that fear isn't telling the truth. It's repeating a script you were handed before you even knew how to question it. Jung believed that until you face the unconscious beliefs running your life, you will keep calling them destiny. So ask yourself, who told me I had to earn my worth? Who made me feel like love was conditional? Who convinced me that rest must be bought in blood? Because until you rewrite that story, you will keep chasing a finish line that doesn't exist and call it success. The shadow wears designer clothes. You think it's about taste, about class, about ambition. You think that craving the best, the cars, the watches, the house, is just part of being driven. But Jung would say, look closer, because that suit might be stitched from shame. That obsession with status might be the shadow in disguise. The shadow isn't some dark, evil force lurking in the back of your mind. It's the repressed self, the wounded child, the part of you that never felt seen. So it grew hungry for attention, for proof, for power. And when that part doesn't get integrated, it doesn't disappear. It gets dressed up. It wears ambition like armor. It hides inside luxury. It speaks through hunger. And if you're not conscious, it becomes you. That's why most people don't chase money. They chase power over their own insecurity. Because when you grow up feeling small, you don't want peace. You want to feel untouchable. You want control. You want a life so polished, no one sees how broken you feel inside. But that's the trap. Because when you haven't integrated your shadow, every financial win feels like a temporary fix, a brief moment of, I did it, before the emptiness returns. You buy the designer jacket, but deep down, you still feel invisible. You hit the new income goal, but your reflection doesn't look any prouder. You build the image, but your inner child still feels like a fraud. Jung warned about this. He said when the shadow is not faced, it begins to operate autonomously. It hijacks your goals. It feeds on your fear. It whispers more, bigger, better. And no matter how much you feed it, it stays hungry because it's not asking for more money. It's asking for integration. That means going back to the parts of yourself you abandoned, the vulnerable you, the insecure you, the angry you, the real you. You don't need to burn your ambitions to the ground. You need to bring your truth into them. Because when the shadow runs the show, success becomes performance, and performance becomes exhaustion. You can always spot someone living from the shadow. They're addicted to comparison. They're allergic to silence. They need validation like oxygen, and their confidence crumbles the moment they're unseen. You've probably felt it too, that feeling when you walk into a room and need everyone to know you're doing well. Not because you're proud, but because you're afraid of being mistaken for less. That's not confidence. That's a survival mechanism. And Jung would tell you, true power doesn't perform. It doesn't need to dress up in gold. It doesn't need to prove anything because it comes from wholeness, not from hiding. So take a breath. Look at your goals. Ask yourself honestly, are they coming from truth or from the parts of you you're too afraid to sit with? Because if your ambition is rooted in rejection, it will always betray you. But if it's rooted in integration, you don't just look powerful, you are. The system profits from your insecurity. It's not an accident. The way you always feel behind. The way success always feels just out of reach. The way rest makes you feel guilty. The way scrolling leaves you empty, but still wanting more. This isn't a personal problem. It's a design. Society was built to keep you hungry, but never satisfied. Because if you felt whole, you'd stop buying. If you felt secure, you'd stop performing. If you felt worthy, you'd stop grinding for approval, and that would make you dangerous, unmarketable, uncontrollable, unprofitable. Carl Jung warned us, the psyche, when disconnected from the soul, becomes a tool for manipulation. It's not just your habits being hacked, it's your identity. Look around. You're bombarded with images of lives that don't exist. Luxury without stress, bodies without insecurity, careers without failure. Everyone's ahead of you. Everyone's doing better. And the unspoken message is clear: you're not enough. Not yet. Not until you buy this. Not until you prove that. Not until you become someone. And when that narrative gets inside your mind, you don't just want money. You need it to feel valid, to feel visible, to quiet the fear that says you're falling behind. But here's the truth. You were never meant to feel caught up, because if you did, you'd stop playing their game. You'd stop overworking. You'd stop overspending. You'd stop overcompensating for wounds that weren't yours to carry in the first place. Jung believed that the modern world monetizes the shadow. Your fears, your doubts, your loneliness, all turned into data, sold back to you as solutions. And that's why none of it works, because they're not solving the root. They're feeding the loop. Buy more, achieve more, be more, perform more, until you collapse. Then buy a course on healing, then a planner, then a productivity tool, then a trip to find yourself, then another hustle. It never ends, because no one profits from your peace. And that's what makes your wholeness revolutionary. Because when you say, I don't need to prove my worth anymore, you stop being a consumer and start becoming a creator. You step out of survival mode. You stop trying to earn rest. You stop treating your life like a resume. And you start asking dangerous questions. What if I already am enough? What if I stopped outsourcing my identity? What if I don't need more, just fewer lies? The system can't sell you your soul. It can only convince you lost it, and then charge you to rent it back in pieces. But Jung would tell you never lost it. It was buried, under shame, under conditioning, under decades of being told who to be. And the moment you stop chasing, not because you've given up, but because you finally woke up, everything changes. Because they can't control a man who knows who he is. They can't sell to someone who's already full, and they can't break someone who's stopped performing. So the real rebellion isn't loud. It's not rage. It's not escape, it's wholeness, and the system can't profit from that. The mask of success becomes a cage. You wake up, you check your phone, you suit up, you show up, you smile, you deliver, you produce. From the outside, it all looks right. You're doing what you're supposed to do, climbing, earning, appearing composed. But inside, something feels wrong. Off is hollow. Not broken, just fake, like you're playing a character. And even you don't fully believe the performance anymore. Carl Jung had a name for this fracture, the persona. It's the mask we wear for the world. It helps us fit in, navigate society, play roles, be accepted. But here's the danger. When the persona becomes too rigid, too distant from the true self, it stops being a tool and starts becoming a prison. And the collapse doesn't come with sirens. It comes quietly, through disconnection, exhaustion, numbness. You're not falling apart. You're falling asleep to who you really are. You smile at work, but feel dead in joy. You earn more, but feel less. You get praised, but doubt if they'd still love you without the role. That's the quiet scream of the psyche, begging for realness, longing to be felt instead of performed, to be whole instead of admired. You weren't born to hustle for identity. You were born with it. But somewhere along the way, you were taught to trade authenticity for approval, realness for polish, soul for resume, and it worked for a while, until you realized you built a life that looks full but doesn't feel like yours, because the success came with conditions. Be strong, be impressive, be productive, be what they expect. So you became that, again and again. And now, you don't even remember who you were before the performance began. Jung warned, the greater the distance between the mask and the self, the more the psyche suffers. Not always with breakdown, but with silent starvation. You begin to resent the very things you worked so hard for, not because they're bad, but because they're built on a lie. A lie that said, once you get here, you'll finally feel whole. But you got here and still feel missing, because masks can't love, they can't rest, they can't feel, they can only perform. And that's the real danger. Not failure, but success at becoming someone you're not. You start laughing at things that don't move you, working for goals that don't fulfill you, saying yes when your soul says no, all to maintain the image, all to protect a version of you that no longer exists. So ask yourself, who is all this for? And what part of you is dying quietly just to keep it alive? Jung would say, the way out is not rebellion, it's integration. You don't have to throw away your life. You have to reclaim your truth inside of it. Bring your real self into the image. Let your mask soften. Let your soul speak. Because if the success isn't rooted in wholeness, it will always demand your silence, and silence is where the real self disappears. The real currency is alignment. Money isn't the problem. It never was. It's not evil. It's not corrupt. It's not soulless. It's neutral. A mirror, not a master. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because when you don't know who you are, you start using money to answer that question for you. You don't ask, does this align with me? You ask, does this prove me? Carl Jung warned us, money, when tied to the shadow, becomes a symbol of power we feel we've lost. We don't just want wealth. We want to feel whole. We want to feel seen. We want to matter. And so we chase what reflects that. The title, the brand, the lifestyle, the applause. But if the wound is unhealed, no number will ever be enough. Because the currency you're really starving for isn't financial. It's psychic. The wound says, I'm not enough, so you work harder, achieve more, collect symbols, post success, but the anxiety doesn't go away, because deep down, you know it's not real. You're not spending money, you're spending identity, trying to buy back the version of yourself you lost when the world convinced you you had to become someone else. That's why the rich still feel empty. That's why the powerful still feel afraid. That's why the successful still feel unseen, because the issue was never the money, it was the meaning. And meaning doesn't come from numbers, it comes from alignment. Jung believed the gold of your life, your power, your peace, your wholeness is buried in the shadow, not lost, not destroyed, just buried beneath years of programming that taught you to seek outward what could only ever be found inward. That's why people sabotage wealth. That's why they overspend when they succeed. That's why they can't relax, even when they're safe, because they're not chasing goals. They're outrunning ghosts, and you can't buy your way out of your own shadow, but you can face it. You can pause, ask, what part of me feels like I'm not allowed to rest? What belief tells me I need more just to feel like enough? Whose approval am I still trying to earn? The answers won't come from your bank account. They'll come from the part of you that money can't touch. And when you meet that part, when you hold it, not run from it, everything changes. Money becomes a tool, not a trap. You stop buying things to numb yourself. You stop hustling for worth. You stop sacrificing your soul for status. You spend with intention. You build with integrity. You align your finances with your values, not your insecurities. You don't need less money. You need more meaning in how you use it. Because the true currency isn't cash. It's energy. It's alignment. It's whether your outer life reflects your inner truth. And when it doesn't, you'll always feel poor, no matter how rich you become. But when it does, when every dollar supports who you really are, you'll feel something money was never supposed to give you: freedom. You don't need more. You need real. You've been taught to chase more status, more security, more validation, more wealth, as if more could finally fill the emptiness that haunts you at night, as if the next income milestone, the next achievement, the next purchase will finally make you feel real. But here's what no one says: that chase never ends, because it was never about what you were gaining. It was about what you were avoiding. Carl Jung warned that when your outer world grows louder than your inner one, you don't just get lost, you forget there was ever anything else. You stop being a person. You become a persona, a brand, a performance. And the longer you perform, the harder it becomes to admit you've forgotten your lines. You know that feeling. You've smiled through it, worked through it, posted through it. That quiet ache that whispers, "This isn't me." And that whisper, that's not weakness. That's your soul, still alive beneath the noise, asking you to remember. Not remember how to hustle, not remember how to win, but to remember who you were before the world convinced you to become someone else. Because you weren't born chasing success. You were born whole. You laughed without needing to earn it. You expressed without needing to monetize it. You connected without needing to perform. And then came the conditioning. Be good. Work hard. Don't ask for too much. Your worth is what you produce. Your value is what you earn. So you became the achiever, the producer, producer, the one who gets things done, and it worked. You survived. But in that survival, you lost pieces of yourself, the soft ones, the messy ones, the real ones, and now, even at your peak, you feel strangely empty because you're not suffering from a lack of money. You're suffering from a lack of meaning. And meaning doesn't come from metrics. It comes from alignment. Alignment with your values, with your truth, with your actual desires, not the ones you inherited. That's what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who the world wants, not who your parents expected, not who your audience applauds, who you are, beneath the roles, beneath the numbers, beneath the armor." And here's the truth, no one profits from telling you. You don't need more, you need real mornings, real presence, real joy, real peace, real you. Because when you chase without consciousness, you become a product of the world. But when you pause, when you breathe, reflect, confront, reclaim, you become the author of your own life. And that's what this video is. Not advice, not motivation, a mirror to show you what you forgot, that you are not what you earn. You are not your bank balance. You are not your status. You are a soul. And the world won't tell you that because it makes more money off your insecurity than your freedom. But Jung didn't care about popularity. He cared about truth. And the truth is this: money is not evil, but the self-abandonment you commit to get it, that is, not because ambition is wrong, but because ambition without self-awareness is just trauma dressed as drive. So what now? You don't need to quit everything. You don't need to give up money. You don't need to escape. You need to come home. Home to your values, home to your vision, home to your voice. The one that says, "I'm not here to perform. I'm here to feel. I'm not here to prove. I'm here to live. I'm not here to chase symbols. I'm here to become something real." So start there, not with rebellion, not with guilt, with reclamation, because if you can reclaim yourself, no system can control you again. And that's the ultimate wealth. You were never poor, you were just misled, and now you remember.